In this video, we'll be talking about separation agreements and what you need to put one together. There's a lot of information you'll need to get together for your separation agreement, and also a lot of things you'll need to think about ahead of time, even before preparing for one, and especially if you're making the separation agreement without a lawyer. This is one of the main reasons you need to have your financial house in order and your budget figured out, and even your separation of assets figured out, so you know where you're financially sitting ahead of time. Because any mistakes in your separation agreement could cause financial problems or hardships for years to come. Hi, my name is John McKenzie, and welcome to Kingdom Principles, your source of info on surviving your marriage separation. So, if you find this video helpful, please like and subscribe. There's a subscribe button in the bottom right of the video. And click on the link in the description to get our free report on the 7 things not to do when going through a marriage separation. Now, let's get into the video. Legal disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. Any type of legal questions should be directed to a competent legal counsel like a separation agreement lawyer. And the information in this video should not be taken as legal advice. Now, there will be a link to access information like separation agreement forms down in the description below. For making your legal separation agreement, you have 3 options. 1, to hire a lawyer. 2, go through mediation. 3, do it yourself. And if you do it yourself, you should get it checked by a lawyer before you sign. Now, we will be doing a future video on questions to ask to help find the perfect lawyer for you, but that will be in a later video. Now, you and your spouse will need to discuss and make agreements on the following. But first, if one spouse is unable or unwilling, the other spouse will have to start court proceedings. Now, hiring a lawyer will be very advantageous in this case. But I'm going to proceed here as we're dealing with the situation that both spouses are cooperative and are willing to work together in this situation. How will you be resolving conflicts in the future? Will it be by phone, by email, by text? Will you be getting a lawyer involved? You need to figure out these situations ahead of time on how you're going to resolve conflicts, because they will come up in the future. How is a separation agreement going to be enforced? You need to figure this out ahead of time, so if one spouse or the other is not living up to the separation agreement, that there can be an enforcement process to resolve the situation. Now, are you going to be living in the same household while separated? Do you have a prenuptial agreement or a cohabitation agreement already in place? Now, if you have kids, you will need to figure out child support. And for the spouse paying, how much and for how long will you have to pay child support? And this will depend on the country, state, province, or territory you live in. They will also take into consideration the age of the children as well. And the payments will usually depend on the annual income of the paying parent and the number of children eligible for child support. Now, the country, state, province, or territory where the paying parent resides will affect this as well. Now, there may be a minimum amount that you may be required to pay, depending on the country, state, province, or territory you live in. So you will need to check with your local government for details. Co-parenting. Note that there needs to be an equitable arrangement between both parents, especially in regards to spending time with the kids. A co-parenting agreement can and probably should be included in a separation agreement and should consist of, at minimum, who gets custody, access, visitation rights, and who's going to be responsible for what percentage of expenses over and above child support. or any child care or daycare expenses. Also, who pays for the child's health care needs over and above that which is covered by insurance. Example, orthodontics, counseling, medication, eye care, etc. Who's responsible for the child's expenses for extracurricular activities? Who pays what expenses for the child's primary and secondary education? And who pays what expenses for post-secondary education? Now, this is just a small list. We'll cover the full information on co-parenting agreements in another video. Spousal support or maintenance. Please note that spousal support or maintenance is different than child support. Spousal support, which spouse receives it, how much and for how long they will receive it, will also depend on which state, province, or territory you live in. The tax implications will be based upon where you live. Assets and liabilities. Division of assets and splitting debts. Assets and liabilities need to be divided equally. This includes all debts, accumulated debts, personal, and including all shared debts. This also includes all mortgages, car loans, etc. Shared and separate assets. You're going to need to start by listing and appraising all your marital assets, personal and family assets. This is where the inventory that was spoken of in our previous video on finances and splitting assets comes into play. If you haven't watched it yet, there should be a link at the end of this video. Now, there needs to be full disclosure from both parties in regards to all property and assets, including all pensions, savings, and including any and all family business. Now you're going to need to appraise the value of your assets. You'll have to put a price on the assets you're distributing. Now we come to the division of property. You will now get to decide how to divide all those assets. Who gets what? Who has reason for receiving the item? You'll need to ensure an equal split. Now, a court may throw out the agreement if the split is considered unequal. And this is why the next item should be considered a must. Getting independent legal advice, preferably a separation agreement lawyer. Your own lawyer, not your spouse's lawyer, to check over your separation agreement before you sign it. This will lead to a lot fewer troubles in the future. Separation agreements are private contracts, so depending on where you live, they should be able to be enforced according to contract law principles. 2 copies of the separation agreement will need to be signed by both spouses, as well as being witnessed by a competent adult. It would be a good idea to have copies of your co-parenting agreement signed as well. Just realize that the more you cannot agree upon, the more it's going to cost you to hammer out the details, either by mediation or via the court. So if you found this info helpful, please like and subscribe, and ring the notification bell to be notified when we upload our next videos. Oh, and don't forget to click on the link in the description to get our free report on the 7 things not to do when going through a marriage separation. Our subscribe button is up here in the corner, and please check out our videos.